Hello everyone, my name is Anthony Cummins and I'm a historical researcher and author. And today I'm going to talk to you about a shinobi called Hagiwara Juzo. And if you want to read all of the teachings of Hagiwara Sensei, then it's in this book here, The Lost Samurai School. And the links will be down below. Right everyone, basically let me tell you the story of Hagiwara Juzo. And I say shinobi because he isn't really a professional shinobi, but he uses shinobi no jutsu in his school. So let's go through. We don't know when he's born, but he must be born in around approximately 1630, 1635, roughly around that era, because he's giving scrolls out by the 1670s. So he must have been about 30 years old then. But it says, now this is an interesting character in comparison to our other shinobi profiles. Now the shinobi profiles of other people are very like, honourable samurai and they've gone and studied war. This guy was a bit of a thug, I think. Not to give him discredit or not to sully his name, but it looks like he was a bit of a brawler. So we know he's in Kanazawa. We know he's a samurai of Kanazawa. And we know he studies a school called Muoi Ryu, which is a school that only just hangs on by a thread. In fact, I'd like to do a book on Muoi Ryu if I could in the future. But basically, one of the last students of Muoi Ryu actually only just wrote down the kata, and today there's a kendo association who perform the kata once a year, and that's all that's left of Muoi Ryu. So it isn't dead, but it is nearly gone. But so what we know is that Hagiwara Juzo, for the main part of his swordsmanship as swordsmanship training, studied a school called Muoi Ryu with his friends, if you like, or with the person we think was his main master. But Hagiwara Juzo himself made his own school called Muoi Ryu, and this means Mubyoshi is the distance between sound and a clap. Yeah, so there's no distance, there's zero gaps. Mubyoshi, it's without gaps basically, and without gaps in sound, i.e. there is no gap in my defense, or there is no difference, you can attack but I will be there and you will be dead. It gives you that idea, and it's based on Chinese pentaconic scale, I think. I can't remember the pronunciation, but basically the 5-step scale, which is part of Japanese law, if you know what I mean, from China. But so we have this guy who's quite well educated, quite sophisticated, but a bit of a ruffian, because it says we have a scroll called Bishamonten, which says that Hagiwara Juzo Sensei, he's called Shigetatsu, his sort of informed name is Shigetatsu. It says when he was younger, and it says it very politely, he had some form of altercation which led to a feud, i.e. they were probably all leathered and they started, that was it then. Right, we're going to get you, our family's going to get your family, and that's it. And then it says because somebody's ancestor had been killed by Hagiwara's ancestor, or maybe the other way around, there was a vengeance thing between two families. And it turns out that Hagiwara Juzo was like young and like, right, better sort this out. And it seems that he was being tracked for something, because he then left to learn different schools. And he says he went round and studied from all the masters he could. And if you look at his school, it is of course a samurai school, but if you look at things like Katori Shinto Ryu, which has a very, very good, very strong samurai base with some esoteric work, Hagiwara is all about defense and revenge. It's literally all about, shit, they're coming for me, how can I get them first? If you look at his school. So while lots of it cross over, there are lots of these. So it says he goes around and he trains with some of the best masters, and we think one of them is this gentleman here, because this seems to become his primary master, and he says that a lot of his work from Muoi Ryu comes from this guy. Now, what we know is that it says he trains for like 1,000 days, but it also says in this scroll that he prays basically to the North Star, the Pole Star, and he prays to Bishamonten, and he says that, please give him victory against his enemies. And it says that he went into, I'm going to use the word mortal combat, but basically he was in fights, if you like, 33 times. And it says 7 of those times he almost died. And he said he didn't win because of his training, even though that was, obviously the required element. But he won because of his, protection from the gods, because he's got a lot of like esoteric sides to his school. He's got a lot of esoteric elements inside of the school. So it says basically that he had 33 times he had to defend himself or attack, we don't know, and 7 of which he almost died. So the question is Hagiwara Juzo, did he kill 33 people? Did he kill less than 33 people but attacked the same person multiple times and got away? Did he only kill 7? Did he kill more than 33 because he had to kill them at different times? We don't know. All we do know is he definitely killed, because it says, X amount of times he was really in trouble. And there's only, these vengeances, they only end one way. Somebody dies and you get their head, and you achieve your revenge. And we know that he carried on because, he carried on writing scrolls. So you've got a guy here who's going round learning all the arts. He's got obviously swordsmanship, and this Shinji Ryu is a very stabby, lots of thrusting, lots of straight in attacks. He's learning jujitsu. He's learning secret weapons. I've done other videos where I use his arrow thrower, quick shock arrow thrower. He's using like pellet throwers. He's got sort of fire techniques. But he also uses Shinobi no Jutsu, and he doesn't say who he learns it from, but he learns the art of the Shinobi. Now, he records this in 3 manuals. So he records this in 3 scrolls. We've got the Mizukagami, we have got Mizukagami Kuden no Oboi, which means, oral traditions from the Mizukagami, and Mizukagami Shinsatsu, which is actually like the new version of the Mizukagami. And there are different elements of Shinobi no Jutsu in those. Now, what you have to remember here, it gets quite complicated, are these Shinobi scrolls? Well, actually, it does say at the end of them, these are Shinobi things, but there's clearly things in there that are literally on the borderline of whether they are or are not Shinobi. That is a debatable thing. But basically, it's a list of secret traditions, and quite a lot of it is magical, to be honest with you. There's lots of magical things in there, which the Shinobi are without doubt, they are known for their black magic, when you go to the higher echelons of Shinobi no Jutsu. So we've got Hagiwara Sensei. He's actually learning skills of the Shinobi, but most of it is not about the battlefield. 90% of it is about getting in and killing an enemy, or approaching, or stopping people. There's lots of defense against Shinobi, because remember, people are infiltrating his house, infiltrating where he is to try and kill him, because he's on a revenge mission. He's on a revenge, and I think, if I remember rightly, it lasts about 9 years, this period of revenge. I'm sorry, that's from memory, guys. The book's over there. So, but basically, you've got almost a decade of him, trying to get revenge, or people trying to get revenge against him. So, we've got this guy who's pretty handy, and he starts recording things like how to steal from people, basically, he'll hide behind a tree, he has a double-edged dagger, and when somebody comes up, he grabs them by the lapels, swings them round, takes the double-edged dagger, slits their throat, holds them, pulls them down, lets them bleed out, and then puts them on the ground. And if anybody else walks around, because obviously he's got to do this where passerbys are coming, because that's how he's got one, he just says, oh, he's ill, and then you start robbing him. Then you pick up his body and throw it down the cliff, or throw it in the bushes, and you're like, this is a samurai. And it says, basically, that when you are, basically not inside of your domain doing normal things in your average day life, you've got to fend for yourself, which samurai shouldn't do these things, but we need to, carry on. So you're like, And the grammar on that part actually is very much he's doing it, not defending against it. Lots of the other stuff is defending against it, but you're like, slitting people's throats to get their cash. So it's a little bit on the, the edgy side. And for example, what you do is you put something white down on a dark night, like a cloth, on the floor when it's raining and it's dark, and you hide behind somewhere, and when somebody goes to bend down to pick it up, you chop their heads off. Boom. So that's one way to get your revenge, because everybody's curious about what somebody's dropped. It might be expensive silk that you can just wash, and you've got something that's very expensive. Right, so Hagiwara Juzo, he gets, revenge. We know he succeeds because he carries on writing, and his school carries on, and then he teaches it to many other people. But then his school, from a small school, becomes really big, And in Kanizawa they actually have, it's something called the Kibukan, and it's the main dojo there that are teaching military skills. And we know that Muoi Ryu Jiu-Jitsu is taught there, mainly the Jiu-Jitsu is taught there in the weekly sessions, and it gets more and more students well after Hagiwara Juzo's time. And eventually it keeps going, it keeps going, it keeps going until the end of the samurai era, when it shuts down, and very, very quickly it starts to deteriorate. You know, from what we have the names of the students, and there's hundreds of students, and then it quickly deteriorates, and it's left up to maybe one man in the 20th century to carry it on. And then so then we get to a problem with the lineage, in the sense that we get grandfather, father, son, who have this possibly the same names, and there's a generation of weirdness there. But that often happens. It often happens in Japan, where you get the name of the father and son being passed on. So what we have here is there's a little bit of an overlap, or a little bit of a stretch, where there's one generation with the same name and the records are not clear on that. But it goes all the way to Uematsu Sensei, who basically is still holding on to this school, but none of the Shinobi no Jutsu is in it, none of the other stuff is in it. He's got the Jiu-Jitsu and some secret weapons, and we have collected the scrolls from all the other stuff and re-put it back together in the book. So you've got this story from a man who was literally revenge filled. He went round and studied he goes to his 1,000-day of study. He studies swordsmanship, he studies secret weapons, he studies poisons, he studies infiltration, and then he basically takes his revenge. He nearly dies 7 times. He possibly kills about 33 people or more, or just slightly less, we're not quite sure, but he has 33 episodes where he's in, fighting with people with obviously big weapons. And then this school crumbles at the end, becomes big, then crumbles at the end, and he's just holding on now. But what is really special for me in this is I came across this scroll, which I'll put it here, which is, we believe, is his actual handwriting with an earlier name of his, because samurai changed their names. And I've got this scroll, which is probably, in fact, very possible and highly probable this is the handwriting of Hagiwara Juzo, because we found another one with the same handwriting, with the same scroll backing, which says Hagiwaru Shigetatsu, and it's stamped, and mine is stamped, but it's stamped with an earlier name, Hagiwara, and then a different name, which is a different familiar name, which they do change in Japan. So for me it's quite special, because I've actually got something that I can physically touch, and it is Hagiwara, and it's come right down to this day, and I've now got 3 copies of this document. And so let me tell you about this scroll in the ninja world. In the ninja world, this scroll was really it's a second tier ninja scroll, like it's not Bansen Shukai, it's not Shoninki, but we've got this scroll, and people were trying to find it for years. It was owned by one man, and Nakashima Sensei spent years trying to get this, and eventually he got a copy, he allowed me to see, but his is quite a later copy, 1800s. And randomly I found 6 versions of it. For 20, 30 years they thought there was only 1 or 2 versions, and nobody would let you see them. And we went trying to find it, and I found 6. It wasn't that difficult, you just look. I was really confused at why people were like, oh, this scroll, we can't get it, it's really difficult. And you're like, well, it's in that library there, why don't you do 6 copies of it now? Do you know what you're like? So basically, guys, not to put down on it, but there is problems in Japan where they're very much stuck in the 19th century to 20th century type of research, where it's the boys' club and they all talk to each other, and you're like, but you could just go get a photocopy of it, it's there. So that is the story of Hagiwara Juzo. So we can smell the streets of Kanizawa, we can see the dojos, we can see that there's feuds between families. Somebody's obviously, Hagiwara Juzo has gone off to train, and he's come back and he's won, and he's probably took his decapitated head and boom, done, and then he's wrote down all his stuff, and he's created a school, and the school obviously becomes popular, so he must have been well known for achieving it. And then the school goes on and finishes with the samurai era, it declines at the end of the samurai era, and it's nearly finished now. So you can go and study in Japan. I've put all the information there. Right guys, I hope you enjoyed that. If you want to follow me on Instagram, you can do. You can also subscribe here. What do you think about revenge attacks? What do you think about Hagiwara Juzo? Seems like a little bit of a shady character, but also a very skilled person. What do you think?